What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 380 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. I have my co-host with me, Alex.
Hey.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
It is a beautiful, beautiful Thursday night because we are being joined. That's a terrible, terrible grammar. We are joined
Work through it. It's
by. We're really excited. Hence my stuttering. Our guest this week is someone. Let me put it this way. This man put off seeing Endgame for the third time to talk to us. He's like, I'm not. I'll do it for you guys. He's an Eisner winning artist. He goes by the name of Georges Jeanty, and he is joining us on Skype. Georges, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
We just finished our pre-show chat,
Mm-hmm.
and it's already like, okay, this is gonna be nice.
We're close friends now.
Yep, we're already best friends.
We did our chant. We're here. We're queer. Let's get started. That whole thing.
Exactly, and we're kicking it off. This is gonna be like one of our. It's like backwards.
Yeah.
We talk with a lot of creators who make things on Kickstarter. We find that people want to talk about their product, their project that's going on, and we want people to be able to see it. And this time we got to you late, but because the Kickstarter, as of right now, there's about 19 hours to go. You're fully funded. You're over. You broke your goal. Everything. Congratulations, triple-digit backers. But we're doing this like it's a little bit in reverse, so it's going to be a little bit different from what our listeners might be used to. So it's not going to be so much like pitching the Kickstarter, but it might be like, oh, congrats on the Kickstarter. Let's talk about what you're making. Let's talk about how you got here. Let's first off, my boring question. You're an Eisner winning artist. Let's talk about coming up in the biz. What's your backstory?
Backstory in terms of how I got the jobs, or
so like how'd you get into doing art? How'd you get into becoming an artist? Were you schooled? Was this a childhood passion? Kind of a generic, how'd you get into the business?
Yes, all of the above.
Yes.
I was a childhood passion. I was schooled to a certain degree because when I was coming up, unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot of higher learning for comic books. So I had to actually go into other degrees other than a comic book degree, which you can do these days. So I actually came out with a fine arts degree, which I have not done a damn thing with.
Fair. That's fair.
But yeah, no, it's pretty much the same old story you get. I'm sure people telling you they loved comic books when they were a kid. They read them, and you realize when you get older, you can draw. Every kid draws when they're a kid, of course, because that's what kids do. And after you realize you have somewhat of an aptitude for it, you stick with it if you're lucky, and you keep going. And maybe girls aren't that much of a distraction to you, and you keep going. And you get older, and you realize, hey, I'm really good at this. Maybe I can make this into a profession. And that's what I did. I had a lot of stop and starts. And I had a very long overnight success, to say the least. So it was definitely one of those. I always loved telling the story about Art Adams, who apparently just, when he was of age and his lifeline was blinking green, he just went to the San Diego Comic-Con, walked around with his portfolio, showed Marvel or somebody his stuff at the time, and they said, "Oh my God, you're amazing! We're going to give you the cover to the X-Men," who were the hottest book at the time, of course. And and the rest is history. All due respect to Art, I do know him, and he definitely deserves those accolades. But I've always said that guy is the exception, not the rule, and the exceptions are the rest of us who have to fight and struggle and just hope one day they can actually do this for a living. So that was me. I was very much, and I think why I succeeded as well as I did, and when I did, I think with anything, and especially with art, you need to take ego out of it. And I took my ego out of what I did because for some reason, artists are that rare breed that if you don't like their art, for some reason, they think you don't like them. And I always felt that strange pull to that, but I've always sort of approached it very logically and and said, no, it's not me they don't like, it's just the art, and I can fix the art. I can't fix me, but I can fix what I do. And that's pretty much how a very short answer to a question of how you got into this business. That was it. Just persistence and a little bit of talent too.
In an episode a long time ago.
Our friend,
so we're going before A New Hope.
Our friend Matt was joking, and we brought up the overnight success idea. And at the time, like, this soccer player just became like the most sought after soccer player. And it's like, yeah, his overnight success took him 10 years. But like, no one had heard of him until,
right.
He
but then overnight.
He was amazing because he's had 10 years of practice to put into it. As you said, like, if someone doesn't like the art, I could change the art. Have you seen yourself go through different styles or or adapt your art style to fit whatever project you're working on?
That's the thing. And I'm around so many artists when the convention season starts, and I always forget to really ask them that question, because I'm very curious. I'm very good. I mean, I like what I do, but I love the medium even more. Mm-hmm. And I'm very good at looking at people. Like, I can tell you who their influences were, even if they can't, which a couple of people have said to me, no, that's not really, but it's so painfully obvious where they got their style, or at least tried to. And, I can give you some great examples. Right now, Bill Sienkiewicz is all over Instagram. Uh-huh. And, Bill could tell you he was definitely a Neil Adams freak. His stuff was so much like Neil Adams when he first started out, and intentionally, that was something. It wasn't that they were in the same gene pool. It was just he admired his work, and as he was becoming a professional or trying to do this, that's what he modeled his stuff after. Of course, and I use Bill as an example, you look at his stuff today, you couldn't tell anyone that he started from a very humble Neil Adams beginning.
Right.
But to look at his stuff now, you're like, yeah, you're your own artist. But in the beginning, sure, everybody started somewhere. And having said that, I could not tell you who my stuff looks like or where it came from. And I can tell you exactly who are my influences. But even I would look at them and go, I just don't see it. And I've always felt an anomaly in that sense, because I've never had that one person. Because I always feel as that person evolves, like, say, Jim Lee. Jim Lee started in a certain place and then ended up somewhere else. The theory there is that as your talent is and how talented you are, as the person you admire evolves, so should you evolve. And therein lies the branching of the trees. In theory, you tend to go somewhere else. And I can give you a perfect example. Like with Jim Lee, Travis Charez, who's a big artist in the biz, he was a Jim Lee clone. And you look at his work today, you couldn't see Jim Lee if you squinted 2 inches from the page, because his stuff looks nothing like where it started out from. Mm-hmm. And that's where I've never been able to tell you what my stuff looks like, but I can tell you who I was looking at for sure.
I would get two vibes while I'm looking at a lot of your art, because I do.
And please, you won't be insulting too, by the way. So don't hold back.
Now I've got to click through some of my reference pieces. Your interior art stuff, a lot of that reminds me of Mark Bagley.
Mark Bagley, really?
Mm-hmm. Because like your characters and your layout, it's very obvious. It's very comic booky. Like you can tell everything that's happening, and it's just what I want to see when I look at a comic book.
Yeah, it's very straightforward.
Yeah. And then, as I was scanning your name in a Facebook group, because that's how I first heard about you and heard about your Kickstarter, a gentleman by the name of Joshua Greyhouse, I'm going to call him out, because
Oh yeah, I know Josh.
He pitched. He's the one who told Sketch Prices about your Kickstarter.
Oh, cool.
Because I believe it was that day or somewhere around the time you had opened up the sketch as one of the perks.
Well, that young man has a thank you coming to him.
So we're a big fan. We've talked with the founder of Sketch Prices a number of times. He's a good friend of ours now. And that's just like a resource group on Facebook where we can enter. We could search for an artist's name and go, well, they're going to be at this convention. I'm going to the convention. how much money should I bring to get a sketch from this artist if I want to get a commission
Oh,
or whatever.
that's efficient.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's also a place for people to brag, and they go, hey, I got this Mike Allred piece, and this is how much I paid for it. And then someone can go, oh, all right. And, and it's a good resource for that. You are all over this site. I search your name.
I thought that was called DeviantArt.
But I opened up a whole bunch of tabs. You're on all of them. Everyone is super happy. Everyone loves your prices. Everyone says you're a great guy and that you're amazing.
They even criticize your prices, really?
Well, it's not criticizing. Like, it's mostly just like, this is what they were charging. This is the piece that I got. So when people feel that, like, it's like, oh my God, look at the quality of work that I got for this price. It was a great price.
And now that means like you got another fan, because someone also go, oh, I can do that. That's a piece I want from him now.
Oh, you got to tell me then who's like totally got dogged and said, this guy gave me this crap and charged me this much.
For the most part,
it ain't worth it, people.
For the most part, the group is pretty supportive, because, like, obviously sometimes you will see, like, oh, hey, I got this piece from this artist, and like you said, maybe you're not the biggest fan of that artist's work.
Right.
So when you see the price, it's like, wow, I wouldn't necessarily pay that much, but I'm happy that you're happy with it. That good for you.
And it's the admins and the creator like want it to be a more positive space. So if someone really likes their $300 piece, I'm not gonna come in. There's no reason for me to ruin their day and go, really, that much?
Yep.
There's just we understand there's not like a good reason for it, and they try to shut that down when it happens.
And it's funny, and I agree, and I think that's where when you get to a certain age, that's why they sort of give old people a pass, because they tend to start saying anything they want, and you don't chastise them for it.
Right.
And I personally feel that should not be limited to old people. Criticism is very useful if it's done well.
Right.
Yeah, if you say something looks like shit, and I don't know if you guys can profane on your site here.
Go for it.
It's
but
fine.
if you do that and say that and just says, I just don't like it, it looks like crap, and you can't tell me why, well, then your opinion is not valid. But if you can say, look, this really looks bad, and I'm going to show you why I think it looks bad.
Right.
And if you can enlighten me, I don't necessarily have to agree with you, but if you can enlighten me, that at least helps me out to say, this is how I have been looking at it, and this is how somebody else has pointed it out to me. If I am one who is more interested in growth, I will at least accept his opinion and go, okay, that's interesting. I've never seen it that way, but yeah, I'll try to look at it like that.
Well, for what it's worth, it seems that people on this in this group, it's kind of unanimous.
Yeah.
You are very well liked in the convention scene. Your work is much appreciated, which drew us to you.
Wow, I'm going to have to go over there at some point.
Yeah. Multiple posts have a running theme of, I got a head sketch, the price was this much, and then he went above and beyond the head sketch, and they couldn't be happier with it. And then everyone says, you're such a great guy. And along with that, they also will post and they did a remark on my book for free. And so
do they ever say too, and this guy also hit on my wife when we were standing there and he didn't realize it?
Not yet.
Haven't.
Still plenty of time.
But your remarks are just they're very simplistic and gorgeous, and it's like you've done a face, but you don't have to frame the whole head. Like their hair just swoops around it. You could tell who it is. And
when you say remark, what is that? What you mean? You're just the framing?
It's like when you're not doing a full head sketch, you're just scribbling a face in a hardcover.
Oh, okay, just something really quick, so it just doesn't seem like you're getting a signature.
Right.
Oh, okay. All
right. So there might be a pair of eyes and some lips, and then the how the hair would fall, and there's not really much besides
I do that. For Buffy all the time.
Yeah.
to the point where it feels like ad nauseum. Dude, seriously, you draw this in every book. Really? You're getting it for free. Shut up and move along.
If anyone legitimately says you do this in every book, I would be very, because this is a free. I could charge you for this, man.
Yeah.
I don't have to do this. But anyways,
tell them to relax. It's what I'm good at.
Yeah.
How long have you drawn Buffy for?
Oh God, I was on Buffy off and on for 10 years. So I was never too far away, so I never took maybe more than 6 months off.
Mhm.
And when I did, funny enough, I was drawing Serenity, Joss's other title.
Yeah.
So I wasn't far from the Whedonverse for 10 years, pretty much.
As a comparison, one of my first conventions I met Phil Hester, and I bought a hardcover, and he drew me a Green Arrow. And he's like, "Would you like a sketch?" And I go, "Yeah, I didn't know I could get a sketch." And he's like, "What do you want?" I was like, "Green Arrow." And then as he's drawing it, I realize, I'm sorry, like I'm making you draw the thing you've been drawing. It's like, would you prefer something? He's like, "No, this is fine. I don't care." Is there a point?
Yeah, I'm of the mind when people do it. I'm assuming that's where your question is going to. But when people do that about Buffy, I like to remind them, Buffy has been really good to me, and this is the girl I came to the dance with. So I think it would be a disrespect if I just kept saying, "No, I don't want to do it. She's boring. I'm so tired of it." I think that's like, somebody dissing your girlfriend, to be honest with you.
Right. So you've done a bunch of superhero work. You've done Buffy. You've done Serenity. Do you have a preference between drawing like, well, we're going to do superheroes in tights versus people in regular clothes, or spaceships versus cars?
I do, and there is a difference, though. I will say that a lot of people say, "Oh, it's no difference as long as I'm drawing, everything's great." And yes, that is true, but there really is, because so long that I was drawing Buffy, everybody kept saying, now that she's in a comic book, you should give her, like, she's a superhero. You should give her a suit. And I'm like, yeah, but the context of Buffy does not allow for a suit. Mm-hmm. So it would look really strange if she put on the same clothing every day to say, all right, I'm going to go out slaying now and wear the same. I mean, I get it. You go out in the cold, you wear the same jacket, mm-hmm. and that's just something you like, sure. But I could never get comfortable enough to have her in a costume, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. So I never really indulged in that. Although a lot of artists, when I was drawing the book, said you should really give her a superhero costume. That way she can become more iconic. And I thought, what you're really saying is that's the way I can become more iconic. And I'm not interested in that as much as staying true to the character. And if you ever watch the TV show, and this is just an example of mm-hmm. Buffy here, but if you ever watch the TV show, she's a regular girl. She dresses like girls dress. And every time you saw her, she may have something she likes, but she wasn't in the same clothing mm-hmm. it's not a Simpsons episode or something. They're not wearing the same thing every episode.
And I feel like Buffy's already iconic as it is. Mm-hmm. Like, does she...
Exactly, yeah.
Did you have to put in a lot of like research and work, like studying current fashion, and be like, well, I'm not just going to have her wear another shirt and pants, I guess. Like, what do I draw her wearing now?
No, I did probably the smartest thing I could have ever done right out the bat with Buffy. And I was very fortunate that I actually did have access to Joss Whedon. Mm-hmm. Like the first time we really connected, like email, and, I knew that I had the job. I knew I was going to do this, and I knew it was something that was going to be at least 4 or 5 issues from the start. Mm-hmm. He was very cool. Say, here's my phone number. Give me a call. If you need something, I'm serious about this. If you need something, don't hesitate, because I am committed to doing this. And, sure, you're sitting there going, oh, wow, I've got Joss Whedon's number. But then the reality sets in and you're like, why would I ever really call him? Just to say, hey, what are you doing? Yeah, all right. Just hanging out. Okay. All right. Bye. So I never utilized it in that sense. But when I do things, I'm very detail oriented, and I like to have reference for stuff. And I gave him a question right out the bat, right at the get-go from getting the assignment. I was like, Joss, I've watched a few of the episodes now, and I'm kind of familiar with this. And I've noticed that, she's a girl, and girls dress, and they like clothing, and they like shoes, and, just like in the real world. If Buffy were a real person, where would she be shopping? And he's like, oh, man. I love that you asked me that. She would shop at Anthropology. And he had the answer already. So this was a guy who was like, I'm dying for somebody to ask me where this girl shops. And from there, he didn't have to ever say anything else again. And I must say, he gave me more compliments on the clothing probably than most anything else in the comic book, because he was like, yes, I love what she's wearing. I love what she's wearing. And it was always something different, because I went out and got, after that, I went and got Anthropology, which is a store, a woman's store, for anyone who might not know that. And
pricey,
they had catalogs. Yeah, a little pricey. The big question there would have been, how could Buffy afford this on her budget of selling burgers and whatnot?
Yeah.
But it was more of I got catalogs, and I just had a reference that I knew Joss would approve of. And from there, it was just me sort of piecing things together. I became a costume designer and a clothing consultant to Miss Summers and put her in things I found to be appropriate, which I say that in the sense that, if I knew she was going to be doing a lot of running, I probably wouldn't have put her in a skirt and shoe and high heels. But if it was something where she's just sort of wanting to make an impression, I could probably get away with a skirt with a slit on one leg, little silly things like that. But I dressed her appropriately for whatever it was she was doing. And that's not to say when she was slaying, I really did give her something very close to a costume, because I had her wearing certain things off and on so that she could do slaying a little more effectively in the 101 handbook.
One thing that, and we kind of touched on it a little bit there, and I'm really interested to, it's something that I like to hear about it. It's the relationship between artist and writer. Like I always refer back to when I, like, one of the couple episodes of Kevin Smith's Fat Man on Batman podcast, and he had Greg Capullo on. He was talking about how him and Scott Snyder didn't necessarily mesh very well when they first started their run on the New 52 Batman, and how Scott was like, okay, so in this panel we're gonna have this, and then Greg was like, nope, that's not how I work. I do that. I am the artist. So, and you mentioned, your relationship with Joss, and how you hit him up, and where does she shop? Do you have the same kind of relationships with most of the writers that you work with, or do you find that the relationships kind of vary depending on who is writing that book?
Oh, for sure, the latter there, because when you are drawing and writing a comic book, that very much is a relationship, and most people love to use the term a marriage. You are definitely entering into a marriage because you guys are committed for the foreseeable future. And you have to get along. In theory, when you marry somebody, you want to get along with them. You don't marry them so that you can hate them. And
theoretically.
Theoretically. And that's something where you have to cultivate over time, because, the first arc, or the first few issues, I should say, that Joss wrote for season 8 of Buffy, obviously he didn't know who I was. I knew who he was, of course, but we didn't know each other. We were getting to know each other because we were starting to court one another with the idea of getting married down the line. And I think about issue 2 or 3, it was a very quick courtship, because he was very descriptive at the beginning, almost getting to the point like what you said about Snyder, getting descriptive about panels and how he wanted, and Joss in general, since obviously he had a job doing something else much more magnanimous than doing comics. He's no stranger to that sort of thing. He knows how that type of storytelling works, and storytelling is storytelling. It's just the medium you tell it in that's different. And once Joss sort of became comfortable with what I was doing and saw what I was doing, he probably gave me the best compliment I ever got, where issue 3 or so came out and it was very sparse, and I thought, oh God, he doesn't care what he's doing anymore, and he's just saying, here, page 1, whatever, page 2, whatever. And I said, well, Joss, I hope I didn't offend you or anything. He's like, no, you know what you're doing, so I don't have to baby you anymore. And that's something I wanted to get with whoever I worked with, that they knew what they were doing, and all I have to do is write the story, and I leave the storytelling to you. And I got that, and I thought, God, that's such a great compliment. Not actually saying it, or saying that it is a compliment, but it was very much a compliment as I took it, right, that he trusted me and what I was doing and my choices and the idea of storytelling. Because I'll tell you, at the beginning, when Joss started season 8, he really was adamant about Buffy his idea was that Buffy was coming over, or the world of Buffy was coming over into the comic books. So they should have more of a comic book look.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, honestly, just the opposite. This world of Buffy is coming over to comic books, but the comic books should lend itself a little more towards the television. And I told him, Joss, a lot of the people who are picking up this book probably haven't read comic books or haven't read comic books on the regular. And they're only picking it up because A, it's your name, and B, it's one of their beloved characters. So we have to make this as easy a transition as possible. And in doing so, I tried to make it more like the TV show and simplifying my storytelling rather than being very esoteric or, just slipping things in where you really have to work to read it. I tried to make it very seamless when I was doing it.
Well, that fits because considering it was called like the new season, the season continued with, what was it, 9 that started the
season 8. Yeah.
8?
Buffy went from 7 seasons on TV to 8 to 12 seasons on comics.
So just that terminology alone should tell you it shouldn't be that different. It shouldn't be like a new thing.
Well, his thing too was, now I get to write this thing with an unlimited budget, which of course I never had at wherever it was, Warner Brothers or whoever was putting it out at the time. They always were dealing with, well, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. And now he was just giddy with, here, we're going to draw whatever. They're going to Japan. They're doing this, all that. He was just loving it.
I forgot who the writer was. As soon as they got the Blade TV series, he's like, we're going to have a fight. He's going to throw cars at each other. And the studio goes, we're not affording throwing. No one's throwing a car.
We don't have money for cars.
You get to fight in a room in a sewer. That's your big final scene.
Oh.
Television.
Unfortunately, we're not super familiar with Buffy.
We have friends. That's fine. We have friends who are very, very passionate about Buffy. We do.
Yeah, we should have consulted them.
Yeah, we probably should have, but we're kind of known for our preparation skills here at Opinions May Vary, but
apparently lack thereof is what I'm
exactly. I will say my main experience. I worked at a bookstore for 10 years, and one thing that's kind of neat, and I have these stupid thoughts in my head. Because I sold Buffy comic books and I shelved Buffy comic books and I received and unpacked and repacked, however you want to put it, for years and years and years, not knowing that the man responsible for the art in those books was eventually going to be on my podcast, which I think is it's a neat thing, It's
but it's excusable. It's excusable.
Yeah. There's always time to get into things, even if it's late. But Buffy's one of those things that it's so many people are passionate about it. It's like, why haven't I gotten on this? What's the problem?
Well, and to be fair, I think that's the beauty of just liking what you like. Just because I don't get into Game of Thrones, but God, I can't go a day without hearing it from somebody.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's just not something that I haven't really taken to. You may like it, and that's great, but I think that's the beauty of so much media right now. You get to be a fan of what you like, because when I was a kid, all you really had was Star Wars and Star Trek, and that was it. You didn't have this vast universe of all these cool things you could get into.
We are so spoiled. It's like
I know, exactly.
Stranger Things season 3 coming out next week or something like that.
Yeah, like 4th of July weekend. Yeah,
just gearing up, like asking all my friends, "Yo, you excited for Stranger Things?" And they go, "I haven't seen it yet." I'm like, and then I yell at them, and then I feel bad for yelling at them.
When my normal friends ask me about Doctor Who, and I go, I don't know anything about Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And they're like, but aren't you a nerd, Alex? And I'm like,
nerds can like a lot of things.
Yeah. And even more to your point, nerds can't like everything now. There's no way you can be into all of the science fiction and horror that's going on television at the moment.
Or anime.
Yeah.
Anime. Yeah. Any of that stuff.
Yep.
I put your name into I have a collector database that collects all of my comic books. And then, because like when a convention comes around, I go, I'm going to put in names of creators and artists who are there. I'll see what I can bring to the show to get signed. And this is where I saw how many issues of Weapon X you had done. And I have all the Gambit issues that you worked on.
Okay, cool.
And you did a cover for Painkiller Jane.
Yeah. I'm good friends with Jimmy Palmiotti, and that was his title back in the day.
I've been a fan of Pink Legend for a long time, for all 3 of her volumes now.
Yeah, that was an alternate cover too. It wasn't like one of the regular ones, so I think it was it was a little harder to find. So not everybody probably saw it. So I wouldn't expect you to have brought it up unless you really were, like, trying to look for it.
She doesn't die somehow. It's amazing. Are you a fan of like the X universe to get the Gambit and Weapon X gigs?
I mean, I'm a fan, or I was a fan, just like everybody else was a fan back in the day. I mean, obviously the X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men, was the biggest selling book for so many years. It was hard not to be into comics, not to be into Marvel comics, and not to be an X-Men fan when all that stuff was coming out. So yeah, I was familiar, and I like to say I was a casual fan. They were never necessarily my favorite. I did get into Wolverine when he first broke out, before he became a household name.
Right.
Wolverine was sort of the anti-hero, the cool guy who was there in the corner that you just didn't trust real well, but you knew there was something about him.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just incredibly cool. And, then Frank Miller does a limited series on him with Chris Claremont, where you're like, my God, this guy just became that much cooler. So I was into stuff like that. But yeah, I was never into necessarily the X-Men as a favorite group. I always was on the Fantastic Four train. That they were my group per se.
What the way you described Wolverine is it's one of the reasons I liked Weapon X so much, because there's so much going on with like these basically tertiary X characters. Because
yes,
Sauron's in the book, and Sabretooth is there, and Ms. Marrow is there, and it's like, how often do we see Ms. Marrow doing stuff?
Yeah, that is all credited to Frank Thierry, who was the writer of the book. And Frank used to be an assistant editor at Marvel and a huge comic book fan. And he was always boasting that, whenever I write, or if ever I get the chance to write, I'm going to write about all these, what people would consider stupid characters that he loved. And when he got the Weapon X book, that was his first agenda, to put all of these characters, all these X-Men characters, I should say, who have sort of fallen through the cracks or you haven't seen in a while. And it was his thing that he was going to do something with everybody. I don't think we lasted past 13 or 14 issues, but he had an agenda for a while. It's a shame it never came to fruition as far as it could have gone. But you definitely saw a taste of what Frank was into.
That's some of my favorite stuff, just because I'm a weirdo. I don't like the mainstream things. Like, I'm not a Superman Batman fan. Like, give me Lobo and Green Arrow. So. Yeah,
I love B characters. I'm more of the Marvel comics. I grew up on Marvel comics, so I loved the B characters growing up. Everybody Spider-Man was with, or the Fantastic Four, or any of those, like the Champions or the Invaders, or all those super non-groups that Marvel tried to put together. I just loved them as a kid.
Let's actually, one more thing before we start on the Kickstarter, which we had hyped at the beginning, and now we're a half hour in, but we're just so entertained by chatting with you. I did want to talk about, in doing my research, because I'm such a well put together host, you have I wanted to talk about Studio Revolver.
Okay.
Which I think is interesting, and also it's neat to see creators working with other creators that I'm like, oh hey, no shit, no way. Because now, are you like a founder of Studio Revolver, or did you join in?
No, and I don't know how far back your research goes, but before Studio Revolver, I was with Gaijin Studios, which probably had a little more fame in their day than Studio Revolver did. But no, I was friendly with the people. And it really wasn't an agenda. It was like 3 guys, Dexter Vines, Tom Feaster, and I think Brian Reber, who they were all just kind of working together anyway. And they just said, well, why don't we just, I don't know, we'll rent an apartment and just call it a studio. And when they did that, I was actually leaving Gaijin Studios, and they asked me, and I think I was working home for like 6 months or so. And they asked me if I wanted to become a part of it. And then later on, I think they asked Mark Brooks if he wanted to become a part of it. And then Jason Pearson at some point, and just a bunch of other people sort of came and went. So I was not necessarily there at the beginning, but I was definitely there when the recruitment started.
I am super interested to learn more about this. I keep saying super. It's pretty lame, but Alex introduced me to Dexter Vine. Not introduced me personally, but like introduced me to Dexter Vine's work long time ago. Like when we first started going to conventions together. Guys, easily one of the best in the business, and also
definitely one of the top 5 inkers in the business.
Right,
for sure.
He's and like also at a convention. Like
he's too cool to approach.
Yeah,
with his Adidas gear, I'm sure, rocking.
Yep,
and he's playing music.
He's got the music on. Like he's always like he's either putting amazing art down on some paper. He's chatting with someone, like just flipping through the pages. Like I'm not allowed to look at this, but I wanted to like talk a little bit about studios, because like not every artist does it, but you do see it. I do see it with some artists that I follow where it's like, oh, hey, such and such is in the studio with me today. It's like, oh my God, you know each other. That's amazing. do you think?
But more to that too, not everybody meshes in a studio too.
Right. Do you think the studio is beneficial to an artist, or does it kind of depend on the person?
Definitely depends on the person. The studio, as it is something that you get out of it what you put into it. So if you're really interested in learning and really want to do this and really, really just want to go ahead and just absorb, you come in there like a sponge. Yeah, I think you're going to be very beneficial. If you're one of those guys where you come to the studio, you go to your room, you close your door, and you don't come out again until you leave, I don't know how beneficial that is to you. You might as well, in my opinion, just kind of stay home. Not to say that you shouldn't be sitting where you are and working all day, but if you aren't open to the atmosphere that you're in, I've always questioned, then why are you in that atmosphere? So yeah, it depends on the person for sure. You used to hear about Gaijin, which was a big deal,
right? Because
they had Brian Stelfreeze and Adam Hughes and Jason Pearson, Carl Story, just a roster, Tony Harris, all these guys. And, you had Wildstorm had a studio where, they had all of their guys. And I honestly don't hear a whole lot about that today.
I think, having no talent myself, everyone should make a studio. I want to hear about all these creators working together and doing. But then again, like maybe some people just work better by themselves.
Well, consider the studio is also an expense. It's not free. You just don't walk into somewhere and say, I'm just going to set up and start working.
Right. Hello, I'm an artist. I'd like to studio.
Yeah, you have monthly dues. You have your responsibilities, whether or not, you have to clean the bathroom or you have to make sure the kitchen is stocked or, everybody, you have to do the vacuum or something. Mm-hmm. You do have a responsibility, which is as it should be. These things don't do themselves. So as a studio, you delegate the division of chores. And, this is a thing where it really is nice to be because, you can have those spontaneous conversations and whatnot and people just come by. But at the end of the day, you're here to work. Right. And it is the work that needs to get done. And if you are a social person, I hate to say it, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of work done in a studio format because you're so gregarious and saying, oh, hey, I saw this on YouTube or hey, I was on the computer and this happened. So you have to, basically dictate to yourself, I need to work. I can be social at lunchtime, but then I need to come back after an hour and keep doing this. So that's the studio. Nobody's there over your shoulder. We're not there to police you. You have to be responsible for yourself. So if you've got deadlines, then you better be aware of that and say, all right, guys, I can't talk today. I got to do my stuff.
Mm-hmm. I did see an example of that within the past year because I don't even remember who the artist was, but he threw it up on his Instagram story. It was one of the artists that like is currently living in Brazil, and so there's just people making amazing art down there. And like the person I was following is an illustrator, and he's walking around the studio, and like there's one guy there hooked up to an Oculus doing all this 3D design work, and someone else is on a keyboard making music, and I'm like, what is going on? But
can I just be a fly on the wall? Like I just want to watch that happen.
Can I clean your bathroom? Like, can I help?
And and I agree with you. It is a great thing. And in that instance, this is probably the only time I would say it's probably better to come into a studio atmosphere and be the low men on the totem pole, like the least talented artists there, because then you surround yourself with all of these people who are obviously better than you are. And if you're good and you're willing to learn, that ups your game.
Yep.
Like you look at all this great stuff being produced and you're like, God, I got to get better at what I do. And if, you know, you're really into it, at least that's how I feel happened to me working at Gaijin. I was around people who were miles and above what I was doing at that time. And I did not come in with a sense of ego whatsoever that now that I'm here, I'm paying the same amount of money that you guys are. I demand the same amount of respect. I was like, I am in awe of everyone here. And like you, JR, I was very much like, oh, can I just sit here for a while and watch you work? Because I love what you're doing.
What's that? There's like an old piece of advice where if you're the smartest person in the room or if you're the most talented person in the room, it's time for you to find a new room.
Yeah, it's time to find a new room, right?
Yeah. All right, let's talk about this Kickstarter, which was just about to be successfully funded. By the time this is up, it will have been successfully funded.
Yep.
Let's get into this. What it looks like you were putting together a sketchbook.
Yes, sir.
What's the deal with this? Is this a recent? Is this going to be a collection of over time? The last 10x amount of years. What are you putting together with this Kickstarter?
That is a very good question. Well, honestly, why I'm doing this Kickstarter at all is so many years now have gone by, and everybody keeps saying, "Oh man, you need to do a Kickstarter. You need to do a Kickstarter." Everybody keeps saying that, and it's such the norm these days that finally I said, you know what? I do. I don't know what really. I've never utilized Kickstarter, so I don't know what it is. I know what it is, but I don't know how it is in terms of what it can do for me. So finally, I just said, you know what? You're right. I should do a Kickstarter. And I thought ambitiously, like everybody, okay, I want to do a 100-page comic book, and we're going to do a $60,000 Kickstarter fund for this European style 100-page comic book and all that. And I thought, maybe that's a little lofty for a first timer. Maybe something a little easier, like a sketchbook, could be in order. And I've put together sketchbooks before. I actually do have sketchbooks on Buffy, and I did a sketchbook on Firefly. So I thought, this is something I know, but I've never really, I did an ash can, and that's how old I am that I still use that term ash can. I did an ash can version of some of the superhero work I did years ago. But I've never actually done something on a much more professional level. So I thought, well, why not just do a Kickstarter based on a sketchbook that focuses on my superhero work, as aside from the Whedon universe work that a lot of people know me for. So I thought, well, maybe that's a good way to start doing a Kickstarter. And I got a couple of friends together, Mark Landry and Tony Ellis, I actually helped him on his Kickstarter. He did a book called Bloodthirsty, and he asked me for advice on that, and was really just returning the favor at this point. And Tony Ellis is a good friend of mine who manages my website. All three of us got together, and we just started doing this. Okay, here's how you do it. These are the specs. This is what we need to do. Here's what we're going to be in for the next 30 days. And that's pretty much how it came about. So I definitely learned a lot doing this, so that the next time I know what to do and what not to do. But yeah, I'm very thankful that it was a success. And I don't know how Kickstarter really works in terms of what your mindset should be. Because I'm one of those guys, if you tell me I need to have $6,000 and you've got 30 days to raise $6,000, I am biting my nails for probably 4 or 5 months if it seems like I'm not going to make that $6,000. And that's why I told my guys, I'm like, look, I don't even want to know where we are. I don't want to know how much money is being made, because the first time you tell me how much money we're making or where we are or where we should be, that's when I'm going to start to worry, and I can't do anything else but worry after that point. So I was very open with them, and I let them carry the burden of, okay, we need to, I definitely, tweeted and Instagrammed and Facebooked and did all the social media I was asked to do, but I never wanted to know how the site was doing, because that was just that would make me too anxious.
That's fair. I would feel the same way.
Yeah, 100%. Totally get that. and this is coming from two people who have never crowdfunded, but I can see
Oh
where.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's as far as the podcast goes, JR can look at our download stats.
Yep.
If I could see those, that would drive me insane.
Yeah.
But how do you go about choosing pieces to put into the book, or are there times where it's like, I'm going to do something brand new, or I'm just going to pick from my old collection?
Yeah,
Or-
well, that's the beauty of not ever having done a superhero sketchbook. I've got tons of crap just sitting there that nobody's really seen, or nobody's seen in a pencil stage or a black and white ink stage, that it's not a question of what I'm going to put in. It's more of a question of what I'm not going to put in, because there's just so much stuff over years. And, you know, I've been very thankful to have a career that spans about 25 years now. So I have a lot to choose from, like what you were just saying with that Painkiller Jane. I guarantee you 90% of the comic buying audience has never even seen that cover. So I could put something like that in there and somebody would go, oh my God, that's so cool. I wonder what that's for, or when did that come out?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much what the sketchbook will be consistent of. A lot of the Gambit, some of the Weapon X stuff. I did Deadpool for a little while also, so some of that stuff will be in there. And I did a bunch of covers for Marvel and DC over the years, and little stories over the years. So little things here and there, and then commissions and just pinups that I've done that I think will make a nice little fit for this sketchbook. But you know what's funny? I hear you guys talking about kickstarting.
Yeah.
As I did this more and more, I realized that this kickstarting campaign really is not about the sketchbook at all. It is all about the tier level.
Yeah.
You got to have tier levels in order to fund your book.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically enough, fund this thing that is not that important in the scheme of things. So in doing that, the next time I do this, I will be more conscious of that, and there will be more tier levels for people to pledge should they want to. But I was very naive coming into this, thinking, all right, well, we need $6,000 to print and make a little money and keep that going. So if we printed up 1,000 books at $20 a pop, then that should do it. And
Right.
I thought naively that, okay, let's do that. And like I said, my friend Mark, he very quickly schooled me, saying, hey, this is how you do it. They showed me to some other sites where other artists were doing things. I even had one guy tell me, you know what we did? We never got somebody to actually pledge it, but we actually offered a $3,000 level that if you pledged $3,000, we would fly you out to the next big con. You could hang out with us at a table, and we would get you a hotel room. And, not that you're beholden to stay with us the whole time, but you'll basically come to a show for free. And I thought, wow, that's really, you can do that sort of thing. Like, yeah, I mean, why not? All of that would probably cost us about $1,500 with the finagling and whatever. And here we are pocketing another $1,500 on something where that person would have had to spend a little bit more because they might not have had the connections. And I thought, okay, now it's almost like Steve Martin in The Jerk. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, that once he realizes that, he's gone into a business where he has to sell junk just to make a profit, he's sort of, the light dawns on him and goes, oh, this is a profit deal. Okay, now I got it. And he was a great salesman after that. So not that I think what I'm doing is junk, of course, but that's definitely in my mind the next time, giving people options to sponsor where they like.
It is amazing how people immediately, it's like, oh, hey, I'm putting together a sketchbook. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to back the sketchbook. What else do I get? Well, you
Exactly.
You get the sketchbook. Yeah, but what else?
Got any stickers?
You put down the money for the sketchbook. That's cool, but this is Kickstarter. I deserve more.
It's like, are we speaking the same language? Yeah. What about getting a sketchbook don't you understand?
Yep. Which is, I mean, some people are like, I like the simpler ones because my brain, and also my wallet appreciate it more.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, hey, if you give me this much money, you're gonna get this, and that's it. You have like 3 different options. Even your campaign, there's like, what, 6 or 7 different options?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
it's not like, okay, you can get this, you can get a sweatshirt with a print with some pins, but not the magnets. If you want the magnets, you got to go the next tier up.
I don't need a shot glass. Okay, just can we pass?
You
on
know,
that?
though, had I known that's what sells, I for damn sure would have put it in there. Though. That's how ignorant I was about all this from the get-go.
Do you see yourself doing Kickstarters in the future?
That's a twofold question. I do see myself doing that, but I also see Kickstarter as being the future of this sort of thing. So anybody who is going to be printing and putting their thing, whatever that thing is, together, will probably have to use a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe or a Patreon or whatever medium they're going to get into. I've learned that this is something that's here, that this services the creator as opposed to servicing the corporation. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do when we draw for Marvel, DC, Disney, whoever. We service the corporation. We don't necessarily serve ourselves. And I think the wonderful thing about a Kickstarter is that it does service the creator in what they're creating.
It's like you're not beholden to a publisher anymore. It's like, no, I published this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the self-funded comic books that I've seen, everyone was saying, well, we tried to raise money for the first issue, and then we sold it to the whatever comic company to publish the rest.
Right.
But usually at the beginning of it all, I'm finding this is something you got to put your neck out there for sure.
Well, that's how Dark Horse got leaving Megalopolis.
Leaving who?
Megalopolis. That was Jim Calafiore and Gail Simone.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
You rattled off really easy. Oh, we'll do a 100-page in a European style. Do you have an idea? Was that just like an example, or do you have something planned out?
No, like any artist who I'm sure you guys have talked to a bunch, they will tell you they've got stories, and I do. Everybody, I think any good artist is if he's a good storyteller, has his own ideas for. And the popular term now, gentlemen, is IP. So everybody has their own IP these days, and that's a very fancy word. We're just saying this is my own stuff. And I certainly do, and I'm sure you guys do. Everybody you talk to potentially has their own IP. So it's not a novel idea. It's just something where a medium like Kickstarter can actually bring it to fruition.
So how soon before we see that Kickstarter? Like, 6 months or so, or?
That's a good question there. I wish I could tell you. Of course, like I said, every artist is a storyteller at heart. And I'm sure every storyteller has his own story he wants to tell. And I'm no exception. I've got a bunch of stuff that I would love to do. Strangely, not a whole lot of it is superhero stuff. When I grew up and really started read into comics and loved comics as the medium, the superhero stuff was really great, but I realized how small of a medium it was in the global scheme of things. And I fell in love with really a lot of the European comic books, which are, just telling stories about the supernatural or the fantastic or just everyday relationships. I am a fiend for Jaime Hernandez's Love and Rockets, which is just about just people talking on a general basis. Nothing ever really happens, but it's fascinating stuff. And I hope to put that together if this is successful. I'm a little dubious about what I would probably have to pledge for that sort of thing, because you're talking about at least a good month of my time being consumed in that sort of thing, and in many cases a few more months. So that's going to really take a good fundraiser to make that goal for sure.
As we get toward the end of the show here, we like to give people a moment or two to kind of plug, where people can find their work. If you're going to be doing any upcoming conventions, where people might be able to see you, in person. So, and you had mentioned Twitter, Instagram, Facebook earlier. Where can people find your stuff on the internet, and what do you got coming up in your future for your travels, conventions, and all
yes, I'm very good at this. I have a pre-recorded speech, so I'll just press record or press play and let it go. This is the convention season, so I think a lot of people are out. these next couple of months and doing a lot of shows. People can find me digitally on my website and in Facebook, which can be linked from my website and all the other social medias, which is Kaba Lounge, KABALOUNGE.com. And from there, all of my, there's a gallery section, a contact section, a link section, and all of that stuff is there. So you can have many hours of fun going through there. Convention wise, I will be hitting the Florida SuperCon in a couple of weeks, the Raleigh Con in North Carolina, July 25th through the 28th, Dragon Con here in Atlanta, where I hail from, in Labor Day weekend, Fan Expo in Salt Lake City, September, Granite Con also in September, and the Minneapolis Con in November. How is that for a schedule, gentlemen?
It's pretty busy.
I'm exhausted just hearing it.
Oddly, I don't think we've ever seen you in person at shows.
No, where are you guys? Where are you?
We're New England.
In
we're in Connecticut. We frequent New York Comic Con and Boston Comic Con usually.
Oh, okay.
Former Boston Comic Con, now Boston Fan Expo.
Yeah. Fan Expo. Yeah, I know it's all changing now that somebody owns it. I haven't really done the East Coast as much. I did New York a few times, but as I'm sure you guys know, that's just become so big and such a juggernaut. I will only really do that if I really have something I'm going to sell or push or I'm invited out to. I think the closest I'll be to you guys is that Granite City.
The Granite State, yeah.
The Granite State, yeah, Comic-Con.
That's like New Hampshire, Vermont, I believe. New Hampshire.
Yeah, New Hampshire. That'll be September 14th and 15th. So unfortunately, that's probably as close to the great New England states as I will be at that time. A lot of the stuff I'm doing now is I don't know. I do a lot of shows that I like, and I try to do at least a few shows that I haven't done, so that I can hopefully garnish a bigger audience. And that Granite Con and the Minneapolis one, I think, are one of those shows that I haven't done in the Salt Lake City, that I haven't done before, that I'm hoping just to, just for the exposure, really, more than anything. I don't know how well I will do, but I'm going for the exposure for sure.
Right.
I haven't, from a lot of my friends and artists that we know in the area, I haven't heard many complaints about Granite State.
Oh, great.
So,
cool.
Yeah. Yep.
It's one of those ones that we want to get out to.
Yeah. But
it's right around the time when Alex starts his spooky season stuff. Being a haunted or a haunter. So it's tough for us to get, especially, and it's also kind of near New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
And budget.
Haunter, what, are you guys ghost hunters as well?
I work haunted attractions. I do makeup and I create zombies for theme parks and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Any theme parks I would know? I used to make it out to the Universal Halloween Horror every year.
I've had friends that have gone there to act. And I believe this year, a friend of mine will be trying out for makeup. She's already met like the guy who runs one of the departments.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, but no, up here I work for Six Flags New England, which
I don't
always say in case I say something stupid.
Yeah.
we call it a local theme park, but yeah, I get to supervise the makeup room and teach people makeup, and we make about between 120 to 150 zombies a night.
Wow. Well, then, yeah, you'd know, because here I was friends with a lot of people who did Netherland, the Halloween haunted house that we have here in Atlanta, which I'm assuming they do the same thing as you guys, which they say is supposedly the most successful of the haunted houses aside from the Universal stuff during the Halloween season.
There's a lot of regional accolades that they put out.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Before we're finished, we were on conventions. We started off with sketch prices. One of Jared's good questions that he asked in the past. Someone comes up to your table, says, "Hey, I like your sketch prices. I would like a sketch," and they name a character. Who are you psyched to draw, and who do you not really care to draw?
Well, see, again, I'm an artist, and it's one of those things. It's like saying an actor. Well, what do you want to act? It's like, well, I want to act. I don't care what I act. I just want to act. And
right.
I love to draw. So I always tell people, if if you're going to give me something obscure, like if it isn't Spider-Man or Captain America, then if you can bring me reference, you will get something just as good as a Spider-Man or a Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any qualms about doing any particular character. I have had the odd person saying, can you draw my kid or something like that, which I really try to tell. I don't do portraits necessarily, but I can draw your kid as a superhero, sure. But yeah, I do try to keep it as a character or their dog. I'm not a big fan of doing that, I have to say. But I will draw a character. A lot of people bring up, like their own creator, own characters, and they just want a professional to actually have done it and all that. So yeah, all that kind of stuff I'm very cool with.
I'm picturing like silly scenario. Can you draw Serenity? Just draw the spaceship.
Just draw the ship.
The ship, yeah. Which I've had. People have said that. Can you just draw the ship, please?
Or can you draw me as Buffy and killing my ex, who's a vampire, please?
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. I had somebody once say, "Can you draw Buffy?" Oh, what was it? Can you draw Buffy in a Captain America suit?
Huh. That's
fun. It's funny the interpretation, the way things get lost in translation. I actually took him at his word. So I drew Buffy in Steve Rogers' suit, which of course would be 5 sizes too big for Buffy. So this suit was flopping on Buffy, and when he came and picked it up, he kind of looked at it and went, oh, okay, I see what you thought I meant.
That's fantastic. And I feel like that's just, again, I'm not the one who requested it, but I would be like, oh, hell yeah, man. You gotta specify.
No one else has one of these now.
Yeah, right?
Nobody, and yeah, I haven't done one since. So yeah, it is a unique, one of a kind.
All right. This was an amazing chat, Georges. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you guys. JR, Alex, I appreciate your time and reaching out.
Thank you for putting off Avengers. Seeing it one more time just to speak to little old us. Congratulations on the upcoming closing of the Kickstarter. Looks like you're set to break that goal, or as of right now you already have. So unless a bunch of people decided to cancel, but
for any listeners, it's a good opportunity to put your eyes on Cabo Lounge and to look for his future work.
Yeah,
definitely the next one for sure. There will be one.
Check it out. Make sure, give a follow and all that. Mash that sub button. Is that what you're supposed to say? But
mash that sub button. Man, you kids with your terms today.
Yeah. It felt wrong saying it, but apparently it's the thing you're supposed to say.
It was wrong.
But anyways, George, thank you so much for coming on. This was great. Hopefully we'll be able to catch you at a convention sometime in the near future, because word around the internet is you're a pretty cool guy.
I look forward to it. God help me, I have to now live up to that expectation. Thank you for those nerves.
Just here to help. All right, that is going to do it for this week's episode. Until next time, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Georges.
And this has been episode 380 of Opinions May Vary.